Good morning. This is All Angles on eNCA. Thank you for joining us. So the big focus that we have at the moment is around the cost of living in the context of unemployment figures that have hit record levels, really. The recent outcomes from the quarterly labor force survey telling us that 34% of people are now unemployed in this country. That has gone up, just under 34%. It went up from 32%, went up by some 1.8%, the unemployment rate. That's the official rate. But if you look at the other rate, the people who've since been discouraged from seeking employment, you go as high as 44% South Africans. So times are hard. Everyone having to cut down the COVID-19 as well as the attendant lockdowns affecting a number of sectors, people losing their jobs and people trying to find a way to continue to make a living. So we'll tell you stories of hope, but also tell you stories of despair throughout the day here on eNCA and crunch the numbers and do scenario planning. What do we do to continue to cope? So that's really the main focus throughout the day here on eNCA. So on that note, let's get started in this hour. COVID-19, the pandemic, is devastating economies all over the world. In this country, the official unemployment rate is now at 34.4%. The cost of living continues to rise. We are talking fuel, groceries and electricity. Now, where does this leave the unemployed? It's a desperate situation on the ground. Our team of reporters are finding out how South Africans and especially unemployed graduates are surviving in these trying times. eNCA's Heidi Giokos is in Johannesburg, Lethiwe Mdluli is in Durban, and our reporter Nobesuthu Hejana is in Cape Town for an update on that situation. Let's speak to them now, all three of them joining me now for that conversation. Colleagues, thank you. So let me start with you, Heidi. You are somewhere in Johannesburg. In fact, you are in KALKFONTEIN in Gauteng. What's the story that you are tracking there in as far as people trying to cope with the unemployment situation, especially as it relates to the youth who are hardest hit around the situation of unemployment?
Yes, certainly, Tillis. We do know that the youth are the hardest hit when it comes to unemployment. If you just look at the number of people that are unemployed in South Africa, it's 7.8 million people that are unemployed. This is an alarming number. And, of course, the pandemic has exacerbated the situation. But we do understand that some people have tried, by all means, to make ends meet. They've tried to start up their own businesses. And instead of sitting at home and waiting for an opportunity, they've decided to take matters into their own hands. We are in KALKFONTEIN, Gauteng, as you mentioned, and we are at a sneaker spot where a group of four have decided to start up this business. It's actually been going on for 5 years already, and they are a family, and they've decided to provide a service to this community and, of course, make a living from it. We are joined by Gabriel McLeod. Thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it. I know you're busy at work. But let's just start off with why you decided to start this. We do know that things are quite tough economically and jobs are quite scarce. Speak to us about your story and why you decided to start this particular business.
Well, I always knew that we wanted to be our own bosses one way or the other. And times are hard, as you said, so we'd rather make a plan instead of wait for a plan. And luckily for me, I had 3 or 4 other people that are family who are willing to be a part of this and help us build this young empire that we're out here trying to build. But yeah, the most inspiring guy was the work fresh. There's people that are already out there doing the sneaker situation. And yeah, we decided to bring it back to the hood and have other people join us, and hopefully it becomes what we dream to be.
And just speak to us about how tough perhaps things have been, especially during the hard lockdown last year, and with all the restrictions and the waves that we've been experiencing. Of course, things might have been particularly tough for your business. Just speak to us generally about how things have been over the last year.
Well, it wasn't easy because with the hard lockdown, people can't go out and about. And if people can't go out and about, their shoes don't get dirty. So I need them going out and about. Them sitting at home wasn't so great for the business. So I'm glad things are now open. People can get their sneakers clean again and utilize them. And that's money to us. That's a living.
And then just lastly, Gabriel, speak to us about perhaps any words of encouragement that you have. We know particularly the youth have been hardest hit in terms of unemployment, and we also see many discouraged. They've just decided to actually stop looking because they see no hope or no opportunity out there. You've decided to open up your business. You seem fairly young. Perhaps if you have any kind of encouragement for those out there who are struggling and are in desperate need for an opportunity.
Well, what I can say is try thinking outside the box. There's always a service to be rendered out there. Just try thinking outside the box. Look in your community, talk to people, do surveys, what the people would need, what people would like, what lacks in the hood. And yeah, be that person that comes up with those services and those needs that the people need. So just think outside the box. The plan is always there.
Great. Thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it. So Tilas, I just think that's a little bit of an inspiring side to the doom and gloom of our unemployment figures, where a family has decided to make something out of basically nothing, saying that they found an opportunity, they saw a need in this community, in this township, and they decided that they would take up on it, and they are providing a service as well as making a living.
It reminds one of the words of Martin Luther King, right, Heidi? Just out of a mountain of despair, eking out a stone of hope. Stories like those are truly encouraging. In fact, hoping to hear more from our colleagues, let me take it to Lethiwe Mdluli, who is out in Durban. And Lethiwe, this is a province in KwaZulu-Natal. Durban is the commercial center of KwaZulu-Natal, but this is a province recently that had its problems compounded by the looting and violence that we saw taking place, which obviously will have an impact on the economy and may even contribute, in fact will contribute to the figures of unemployment. What are you gauging what's your sense of what people are doing to try and cope where you are?
Well, Tulasizwe, following the unrest that took place in the province in July, there were predictions that over 100,000 people will be jobless by the month of September. So those predictions are not sending a positive message out there. I have been out on the street speaking to people. I started off in Phoenix earlier on, where I spoke to a lady who has a qualification, but she lost her job in 2019, and following this, she started a small business, and that has been keeping her going for the years. But she was sharing that since last year, the business has not been doing well because of COVID-19. I also spoke to an upcoming artist earlier on, who tells me that because of the pandemic, they are unable to hold gatherings, and because of COVID-19 regulations, that has affected him and his business. I'm now joined by Lethiwe Mdluli, who's also an artist, and he's been sharing some of the problems that he's been experiencing, especially during the pandemic. So a lot of people in KZN are affected by the economy not doing well, and also the unrest that took place in July. But Sivu, good afternoon. My first question for you is, I know that you're an artist. How has this pandemic affected your business?
It's affected me in a way that we literally can't work, and I don't know if I'm being biased, but I think the pandemic has hit musicians harder than any other industry because it still feels like we're in level 5, basically, because everybody else, when we go down from level 5, like their businesses can start to work and stuff like that. Whereas us, we have to at least get to level 1 and we can do some work, not like we used to. So it's affected us really badly because we can't do anything at all to make an income in our industry, basically. And it doesn't seem like the president cares because our industry doesn't affect the economy as much as the rest, like alcohol and stuff. So yeah, it's affected us really badly because as long as people cannot gather, we can't make money.
Since people can't gather and you can't work, have you tried to find a side hustle where you can basically make an income?
Yes, for now I teach, and it's not making the type of income that I used to make, but it's making enough to like sort of try and get along, and it's affected our lives in ways that I can't even explain it all in this interview, but it's affected our lives in a way that it had to change my family life as well, because my wife was a housewife. We had spoke about it, and she decided I want to be a housewife, and I was like, oh, I'm cool with that. So she was a housewife, so I was the one making the money. I was the head of the family in terms of the income. And when the pandemic hit, and which it hit when we had just had a baby, we had a baby in November 2019, and then the pandemic hit like 3-4 months after that. And having a baby on its own is hard, and then you have to add now the breadwinner of the family is losing his job immediately, and then the housewife has to brush off her certificates and degrees and look for a job. Like, it's been tough. For the past 2 years, it's been really, really tough. But we've been trying to make means. She's working now, and I am a teacher now, and we are just doing whatever we can to survive. Yeah.
Was it easy to find those jobs for you guys? Because I know that there's not a lot of jobs out there.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. My wife only started working maybe 6 months ago. We literally had to figure out how to make it work. If it was not for family, because even for there were monies that we were supposed to get that we could apply for if we showed proof of the fact that we're artists, and then we could apply for money and we would get reimbursed sort of for the gigs that we lost. But none of that money got to us. We applied for those things and all of those things. None of that money got to us. So it was tough. It was really tough. It was really tough. If it was not for family and friends, we would have not survived this pandemic.
Thank you so much, Sibu.
Thank you so much.
So, Thulasizwe, those are some of the realities that a lot of South Africans are dealing with, especially here in KZN. It's not easy to find a job. We were hit by the unrest, and it affected a lot of job opportunities. So people are currently unemployed, most of them. As Heidi said, we have over 7 million people in South Africa who are currently jobless.
Yeah, thank you for that, Nobesuthu. It's a sharp contrast from the situation a few minutes ago from the person that Heidi was talking to, in terms of them trying to find a way to keep it going. Sivu, they're saying that he's also trying, his wife is also trying, but things continue to be difficult for them. Let's take it to Nobesuthu Hejana out in the Western Cape. And Nobesuthu, what is the picture that emerges in a province whose economy, is a mixed economy? When it does well, it does really well. It's a metropolitan province largely, but also at the same time with huge aspects of agriculture, production and tourism as well. I see you are standing in a place that looks like a garden. Hopefully the ideas are sprouting for people to be able to make an income in these tough times.
Well, in fact, Tulas, I'm not sure which year was it. There was a program ran by the government. It was called Vukuzenzele, and quite a number of graduates that I spoke to today, they were telling me exactly that instead of waiting up on opportunities, they've decided to take that call onto themselves. And I'm now joined by a man who has masters in applied chemistry. He obtained them with cum laude, and he's now in the process of getting his PhD at the University of Stellenbosch. But Mawande, I'm sure when you were studying back at varsity, you had high aspirations as to what you wanted to do, but just like many of the unemployed graduates, you fell into that branch. Just take us through, what were your aspirations?
Well, it was clear for me just before I graduated for masters that unemployment is a reality in South Africa, and it's been so for as long as I can remember. From 2010 onwards, it's been increasing. So for me to avoid being part of the statistic, having the depression of going up and down and not getting a job, rather let me just start a project which hopefully would inspire other young people who are in the township who also hold degrees in various fields of study. So I started this garden last year in 2019 as a food garden, and then we struggled to get a market. We said, instead of growing to throw in that corner, in that compost corner, let us open a restaurant and cook our vegetables, and then the surplus would sell to the informal market. So that is how we started the garden. And after that, we also encouraged other people to start growing their own food. Also, we did that program together with the Department of Agriculture, and I think that has helped a lot of other families, apart from just young people. Also, old people who lost their jobs during the pandemic, they have also gotten something at least.
And I understand you have about 13 people that you've employed. So it's not only for your beneficiary that you saw that there was no job, but then you decided to do this thing, but you have people working here.
Yes, so we have 3 adults and 10 young people who are working here. We also, when we have, for instance, events, we also invite other young people who have businesses that we feel that they can benefit from whatever event that we are having. In that way, we are empowering each other. I think it's important for these kind of projects to happen because, in 2020, I was in a prison dialogue with the president, and part of the solution to reduce youth unemployment was they said that they're going to industrialize the township. And one of the questions that I ask is, why do you bring industries if there are graduates in the township? What does that mean about the quality of the education? Do you trust the education that we are giving young people? Because if you trusted the education, you would invest in the township, you would start project with those people that are holding degrees so that they can at least have something, So I think that for me now is something that needs to happen. Apart from that, from my observation, I think agriculture has been the only field where jobs have been created even during the pandemic. So I think if government can invest more on agriculture and also take, for instance, the commit to say, while they are still waiting for the changing of the constitution to allow expropriation of land, there is state land that is available. If government can commit to say part of the land will be dedicated to, for instance, a number of graduates who are going to start agricultural projects, and then identify maybe 10 young people to do that who are graduates. Immediately, they would also create opportunities for people who don't hold degrees, who are uneducated. And I think for me, if they can also invest more in agriculture, because agriculture, it is able to employ even people who are outside the field of agriculture, like chemists, So that is what I think now should be the solution, since the government has been failing to create jobs.
And lastly, Budwami, what motivation would you give to other young unemployed graduates out there who are still sending their CVs, applying for these jobs, and they're still getting those emails to say, we regret to inform you?
To the young people who are trying to look for jobs, the reality is companies are shutting down. They are under the strain because of the COVID-19 regulations. What young people should do now is to use the skills that they have acquired in the university to their own benefit. They can start projects. There are a lot of problems that are, especially in the township, there are a lot of business ideas that can make money, or at least a living for those people who hold degrees. So I would say if we collaborate, I always say collaboration for purpose, and competition for profit. So if we can combine as young people and say, okay, we've been looking for jobs, there's not been any solution. Now let us look at the skills that we have acquired in university, and let's start something. Government will catch us on the way.
All right. Thank you very much. Well, to us, that was Mawande Sigwinti, who runs the My Africa Food Garden.
Wow, that's amazing. That's actually amazing, Nobesuthu there, speaking to Mawande Sigwinta. From all three of you colleagues, thank you for your time. Really just showing that there's not a lack of ideas and creativity among the young people of South Africa. As I was saying, we're bringing stories of despair about the reality of unemployment in our country, but also bringing stories of hope, as the three of you have told us, from three different parts of this country. There was Heidi Giokos, Lethiwe Mdluli, and Nobesuthu Hejana there bringing you some of those stories. It just shows that we're not just being hysterical about the problems and just screaming loudly about the problems and not bringing solutions.